Hello everyone, it's been a while, sorry about that. I've been working on stuff for my other channel, but today I'm back to do more reviews, and today we're going to be talking about Far Cry 4. So Far Cry 4 is the fourth main title in the Far Cry franchise made by Ubisoft, and it tells the story of AJ Gale, or Ajay Ghale, I'm not entirely sure how you say it. They say it both ways in the game. And he goes to the country of Kyrat to spread his mother's ashes, but he also has to take down the country's dictator, Pagan Min, played by Troy Baker. And I'll just say it, I had a lot of fun with Far Cry 4. It's not as good as 3 or 5, in my opinion, but it's still a lot of fun to play. And easily I'd say the best thing about it is the open world. There's way more activities than in the other games. There's all these trucks that come by, and you have these karma events, and there's all these things you can do, and they happen all the time. Like every couple minutes of gameplay you'll find a karma thing. As you drive around to your next mission, there'll be a ton of them, and they're pretty fun to do. You know, some of them are better than others. Some of them you have to help the rebels fight, and some of them you just take out one guy, and yeah, but they are pretty fun to do. One of my biggest issues with Far Cry 3 was that in the second half of that game, it got way harder. The enemies had a lot more health, and they just had unrealistic health levels. Like one time with the privateers in that game, I would fire entire clips into one guy and he wouldn't even move. But this game doesn't really have that problem. It's not like first half of the game is easy, second half of the game is super hard. It's more like a couple enemies here and there have that. It might just be a bug. You know, Ubisoft doesn't have the best reputation for perfectly made games. But the issue was nowhere near as bad as Far Cry 3. That was just problematic in there. It was probably probably my biggest issue with that game. But this game doesn't really have that. Now, as for the story, it's okay. It's good. It's not the best. The story, like most games in this franchise, is just kind of take down the guy. You're not really doing anything. Far Cry 3 had more of a story. You had to get your friends off the island. And in this game, you know, you have a similar thing. You have to spread your mother's ashes. And probably my biggest issue with that game is that plot point is basically forgotten. I mean, there are choices in the game, and I really like that. The choices are pretty cool. But the way I played the game completely ignored that, the endings I got, and the goal of spreading your mother's ashes. That was just to get your character to the country. It has nothing to do with the story of the game. And as far as I'm aware, other endings do make that plot point more prevalent, but the ones that I got and the choices I made in my playthrough, it barely mattered at all, so that's probably my biggest issue with the game. Another kind of issue here is that this game feels really similar to Far Cry 3 and 5. It's kind of an evolution. 3 kind of turned into 4, and then 4 turned into 5. 4's in the middle. It has stuff from 3 and stuff from 5. And it is kind of obvious the takedown animations and the first aid things, like where you can heal yourself without medkits, they're exactly the same as Far Cry 3. There's almost no difference in the animations. And I just kind of would have liked something a little bit more. But the map is very different than both games. Far Cry 3, you had the islands. Far Cry 5, you have Hope County, Montana. And this game is, in the country, is kind of like Nepal, and it is pretty good. And probably one of my favorite things about this game is the graphics, especially the facial animations and details up close. Like as you'll see here, like the textures and stuff, all that is great. Like sometimes I looked at some characters, it's like that was like a real person. That doesn't look like a character. It looks like an actual person, and it definitely surprised me. But you know, that's one part of the graphics. Sometimes the terrain looks super flat, and like noticeably, it just looks really like textureless. It just looks like a drawn thing with a super amount of blur effects on it. So half of the graphics are incredible and half of them are just kind of fine. But overall, it's a really good looking game. Now the Far Cry series is known for its villains, and so how does Pagan Min compare to the other villains in the games, at least the ones that I've played? Well, from what I've played of Far Cry 2, the villain in that game seems super generic. I haven't finished Far Cry 2, I've barely started it. and I will review it someday. So he's definitely better than that, and I'd say he's probably a little bit better than the villains in Far Cry 5. He feels more of a... He's more focused, because in Far Cry 5 you kind of had 4 different characters with a bunch of different things going on, but in this one it's just one character. But he does not come close to Voss from Far Cry 3. I don't think they haven't topped Voss yet. Hopefully with Far Cry 6, maybe the villain in that can get closer to that. He does look promising from what I've seen of the new game. So I liked Pagan Min. He's not in the game much at all, but he's kind of nothing compared to Voss. But his acting by Troy Baker is great. And I'd say all the acting is good. Some of the writing will be dated. Like, there was a part early in the game where Pagan Min mentions Kanye's Twitter, and I was like, if I played this game 200 years later, that would make no sense. So I feel like the writing will appear dated in the future, but it's not like the worst writing ever. So overall, I really liked Far Cry 4. Is it the best in the series? No, Far Cry 3 and 5 are better, but I still had a lot of fun with it. As for a grade, I'm going to go for a 7.5 out of 10. It feels too good to give it a 7, too not good to give it an 8. So I definitely recommend checking it out sometime. It is really fun. But I will say this. This game has the most abrupt ending of all time. Well, the one I got is so abrupt, I didn't even know it was over. It's like, okay, we're done. It's even more abrupt than Last of Us 1, which probably held that title before this. Alright, that was my review of Far Cry 4. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. I will be reviewing Far Cry 3 very soon, and I'm going to be bringing you guys some more reviews soon, as well as some other stuff on my other channel. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.